Okay, previous weeks we looked at different parts of e-commerce. We looked at different platforms and why they're important to get started in building up a business online. Then we also looked at the customer journey and how it's important to understand who our customers before we design or redesign our e-commerce site. Then we also looked at the role of marketing. We looked at different approaches that one needs to take to be able to succeed online and tell the world that you exist. And that's what marketing stands for. It's really helping us to tell the world we exist and start to build that relationship with these customers. Now, it doesn't matter how well you do online, unless you measure that. It's like you're just in the middle of nowhere, but you've got no idea what's happening. You can't improve, you can't connect with your customers, you can't connect with your businesses if you're doing a B2B service. You can't really do much. You can't tell what's working, what's not working. And therefore, in today's lecture, we want to talk about how can you understand the business using analytics. Now, analytics are an important part of understanding how well we do with the business. So, analytics are pretty much tools or software that allow us to assess our online performance with our business, right? And these tools or applications online are really software based that do work out with thousands and thousands of files and thousands of information, and they crunch these numbers and they give us reports to tell us on specific parts of the websites how well we do. And we're going to look into that in a minute, but it's really an essential part of succeeding online. So, what we're going to talk about, what do we measure online? So, okay, we understand that measuring our online performance is really useful, but then how do we do that? What do we need to measure? What counts? What is important? Then we're going to look at types of tools, free and commercial. So what are some of the tools that we can use to assess our performance online? And when I say performance, I mean subscriptions, sales, connections, sign-up processes, all sorts of things, right? So remember, we've talked about conversion rate, and there's one thing you should never forget. Conversion rate is a very important metric that really tells us how well we're doing with our online business. Because we said it is what is conversion rate? What did we say the conversion rate was? Do you remember? Conversion rate, yes.
It's a measurement about, let's say...
Take your time.
Measurement of the attractiveness and kind of different for using different instruments.
Yeah, but let's put it simply. Measurement is, well, conversion rate is a desired action that we want our customers to take, right? What is the desired action from you as a business?
Sell.
Sorry?
It's to sell. So
yeah, well, it could be selling. What else could it be? Interest. What else could it be? Signing up for a process, subscription, RSS feeds, Twitter, social networking. Yeah? It can be all sorts of things, right? And if you have a blog, you're not selling. So really, selling in that moment for you, it's not really relevant, right? Because you're not selling anything. So if you had a blog, the conversion rate would be what? Would be
views.
Yeah, views and people that subscribe to your blog. So that's your conversion rate. So when you start measuring the conversion rate for your blog, obviously what you do, you go and check with your Google Analytics how many people have subscribed to your blog. And then you start to work out, how much you're succeeding when it comes to attracting people to come to your blog. Then of course we'll talk about reporting results. What is that? It's really important to look into understanding, putting together the data and information that you would be reporting and sharing with your seniors and also with customers as well in some cases. And then lately we'll be talking about, weekly topic. So, what are the key metrics that we all need to be thinking about? Well, according to research, the first one There's no surprise there are the visitors. We already mentioned that. We need to know how many visitors we're getting. We need to know where these people are coming from, right? Now, if you have an e-commerce site and you're selling in UK only, but you start to get more than 15 and 20% of visitors from Italy, right? Obviously these people can't buy because you're not selling in Italy. Now what does that tell you? That tells you that you might want to consider talking to some supply chain services in Italy, or maybe start to see whether you can build up a warehouse there, or somehow start to extend that business in that area. So the traffic tells you a lot more than we think. Because in a way it shows you the route that you need to take as a business to expand. And trust me, lots of e-commerce sites do exactly that. So you wonder why ASOS is starting with that country, it's not starting with the other one. It's probably because they can tell they're getting traffic a lot more from X country than from the Y country. So they're going to go after the numbers first. Specifically because they offer a free delivery, obviously they really want to make sure that, you know, they will be selling a lot. So the volume is going to be really important, otherwise they won't be making any money. In fact, according to research, when they launched the free delivery, they actually lost lots of money. So, but with the volume, they kind of recovered from it, right? And that's the same case with Amazon. Amazon loses lots and lots of money with the free deliveries, but they make up with the volume and with other business services that they offer. Then, what is the top referral traffic? Now, that's another important metric, because when you identify which source is giving you the most traffic, you will immediately start to invest more on that source. If Facebook fan page is offering you the most traffic, you've got to do a good job with Facebook then. If your Twitter is giving you the most traffic, referring the most traffic, you will start to really invest in building a presence that is engaging and that gets people to talk to you on Twitter. So in other words, it shows you the picture, it shows you the map. And these metrics are probably key elements to building that map of yours for the future development. So once you've done that, you start to also understand what is the frequency of these visits. How often do these people come from? Where are they coming from? We talked about this. And ultimately, what is the conversion rate? And we're going to look at the conversion rate in an example which I think is quite interesting. Now, why analytics? Why is it important for us and for the business and for everybody to consider analytics? Well, the first and foremost is grow the business, right? You're in business to sell. You're in business to make money. You're in business to reach out to other customers that really like your service and therefore sell to them as well. The next one is, of course, improve efficiency. Now, if you don't measure, you can't improve. That's my thinking behind this, right? But of course, if you can't measure, really, you can't tell what is the most efficient channel that you should be focusing when building your business online. And we've talked about some of those metrics in there, but there's a lot more. There's the keywords, there's your online advertising, your pay-per-click campaigns. Everything that you're investing online can be checked, analyzed, and assessed by your analytics. Now, analytics are pretty much a intelligent office, if you had one in a traditional business. They pretty much went and collected lots of data for you and came back to you and said, oh, by the way, this is what we need to do next. Because we have these guys coming from Hertfordshire County, these guys coming from Bedfordshire, these guys coming from London, and this is how often they come and buy, these are the stores they're using the most, and this is the report. Now imagine if you had to do that manually. That's really hard, isn't it? But with the digital, that is a lot easier. And that's the beauty of digital. The beauty of digital is that it allows you to collect the data, to do lots of analysis, crunch those numbers, and come up with the relevant outcomes for your business. And again, that's the problem with traditional business. It's really hard to do that. Of course, the next thing is that you can start to reduce costs as well. We all know that analyzing these things and doing these things manually, can take forever. Like what Google Analytics do for you, it's like you'll need a team of hundreds of people to be able to just to produce one only report for you. And that could cost you millions, right? It could cost you lots of money as a business. So it really helps you to become more efficient in running the business. So what do we need to think about? We need to think about a model that is provided by Cliff in 2012 called MAT. Really, it stands for acquisition of visitors, then measurement of performance. So how many visitors are you acquiring? How well you're performing? So you start to look at different areas of your performance that start with keywords, with your activities, social networking, pay-per-click, advertising and things like that. And also analysis of your trends. What is trending within your business? And now the trends can be understood using keywords. Keywords are the triggers of what's clicking, what's working within your website, right? And when you start to look at some of these analytics, which I strongly recommend that you probably do from now until next week when we have our tutorials, to start to play around and just get an idea about how well these analytics provide you a good report. And then of course, the last one is testing to improve. So MET stands for acquisition, measurement, analysis, and testing to improve, right? And in a way, you get lots of information. So by this point, by the time you get to this point, you've got a lot of information to work with. Now, information is beautiful because it gives you things that you can improve or launch or redesign with your business without having to worry about anything else. And with the digital, analytics help us just to get hands on as much information as we ever wanted. All we have to do is to understand what are those pieces of outcomes and the reports you're getting from these analytics to provide something that is relevant. In other words, analytics should help you to build, redesign a business model for your online transactions. It should really tell you what is the business model that you need to run when it comes to your business. Now, where Web Analytics fit in an organization? Well, customer analytics is probably one element that is growing even further now, especially with all of these e-commerce websites being built all the time and then being launched. Of course, there is normally a back-end office that looks after that. And of course, normally it's the office that sometimes probably looks after the social media activities, customer support, but in addition to that, they look after analytics. Now, every single company that gets back to you very quick when you made a complaint in the social networking channels, that is most probably because they have really good analytics put in place to track their social networking presence. So as soon as you say something good or bad to the company, they will get back to you within a few hours. Because they've got analytics put in place, they will pick up every time somebody talks about their brand. Now imagine if you had to do that manually. It's probably impossible, isn't it? How can you find out when somebody talks about you if you don't have an intelligent way using software to be able to do just that? Now, objectives and the key results. Okay, OKR is pretty much a process that is used to give you an overall idea about what are those objectives that you want to achieve. The only problem with OKRs are that is a term recently used. It helps you to identify your objectives, but they're not specific enough. But just overall objectives for the business, which is all really good and really useful. So you can start to say, I want to sell more, I want more traffic, I want more sign up customers and things like that, and I want to improve customer service, right? Or customer experience. So these are just general types of objectives you set to your business. But then, key performance indicators are these elements that really tell you what is exactly, how are you performing and what are those indicators that you need to focus on. And this is when you start to become really, really specific about what is exactly you're trying to get. How can you assess your performance online? So you start to identify percentage of visitors that come from search engines, percentage of visitors that come from social media, or percentage of visitors that leave your shopping cart, or percentage of visitors that actually convert from the time they added their products into the shopping cart, and then also how well you did with your marketing efforts, whether that's a social media or pay-per-click or affiliate marketing or newsletters, whatever it is, right? So you start to identify exactly which are those elements that are doing the best in your business, okay? And then you can start to make enough calculations about what's your average order. How much do you need to spend to get someone to buy? That's when you start to make up an idea about how much money you're actually making. And we're going to look at an example in a minute, but you will just see that a very small difference in a conversion rate makes a big difference in overall sales every year in your business. Now, conversion rate. Normally, conversion rate in business as of today, pretty much between 1 to 3%. So remember, out of 100 visitors, if you're lucky, or if you've done a good job, better to say, because if you've done a good job, you might just get 2 or 3 people that buy. Now that's a very small number, right? So imagine if you leave one of the things out that we talked about in the customer journey, in the module, if you don't have a consistent and an easy to follow customer journey, you might actually lose that 1 or 2% anyway. So you're talking about very small, little amount of customers of visitors that actually turn into customers and buy. Therefore, very tiny little elements into the customer journeys must be put right. Because if you don't, that will go too, and you're not selling anything, right? So when you start to look at the conversion rate, you start to look at the visitors who pretty much are potential customers, but only if you have designed a customer journey that is so easy to follow that it makes sense for customers to go from point A to point B to point C, which could be a checkout or a thank you page, right? And then when you start to understand this more, you start to also look at one other element, which is called bounced visitors, right? Bounced visitors are pretty much a group of visitors that you have attracted that might not want to be in your website, but for some reason they ended up coming to your website. So in a way, it means that you might be attracting wrong groups of people. And therefore, that bounce rate can be a lot higher than you would normally think. So bounce rate needs to be as low as possible, which means that you are attracting relevant customers to your website. And that means that you might start to have slightly smaller abandon rate from your checkout process. Now let's look at an example. Let's look at an economic effect of a 1% increase in conversion rate. Now I don't want to go into too much details because you can look at this at home, but if you start to take 2 examples and just start to make one only key difference in a conversion rate from 3% to 4%, and you will see what is the outcome of overall sales in a business. Now, if you take 2 businesses and you start to see how many visitors you're getting, how much it's costing per visit, and also cost of all visits and conversion rate, and then start to work out how much your revenue per conversion is, then you start to see how much total revenue you can make on that with that business. Now, if that 3% conversion rate goes to 4%, ultimately the difference in revenues could be $75,000 in this example, right? So you can see just 1%, right, of increase in conversion rate means $75,000 of extra sales for your business by the end of the year. Okay? Now, these are some of the elements that you need to be thinking about. Why? Because it's just a breakdown of some important elements when it comes to attracting visitors, how much it costs you per visitor, how much you're paying for those clicks, and how much your pay-per-click campaigns per each visit. That's when you start to say, okay, I've invested £4 to get this guy to come to my website. He's spending £10 in my website, and after my shipping and the tax and everything else, you're probably making £2 or something, right? So really, you're not making big money. And that's why, in fact, you can get to that point only if you've done all of other things right. You've done the design right, you've done a customer journey right, you've done a customer support right, social media right, advertising right, and also you made sure that there's a clear and good customer journey within your website. That's when you can get to those sales, okay? Now, you can see and start to build up an idea about the marketing efforts you put in. Now, marketing efforts can come from different places. It can come from organic search, which pretty much the main search results you get in search engines, whereby you're not investing money on that, but what you're doing is that you're attracting Google to come and see you and visit you very often, Google Spiders, because you're providing content that people are finding it relevant to. And in addition to that, you're getting something really interesting right, and that is the fact that you are linking your website with relevant other websites of the same in your same industry. And Google calculates your page rank or your overall performance online by analyzing the link building you are doing with other companies. In other words, Google will say to you, if you're linked to ASOS, eBay, and Amazon, you're probably a very important website. If you're linked to Hertfordshire and maybe Hertfordshire County Council or something like that while you sell fashion online, probably that's not very relevant. Right? So Google starts to make up an idea about your performance based on the people you're spending time with. Like the saying goes, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who. Well, anyway, but it's something like, tell me who you spend time with and I'll tell you what's your personality or who you are, right? So in other words, starting to build up an idea about who are those businesses that connect with you, and based on that, Google works out exactly how important your website is, right? And so you start to build up an idea about how much of that traffic comes then from referrals or pay-per-click campaigns as well. Now this is an example I want you to analyze further after the lecture, but it's quite interesting. I thought I would show it to you because it just gives you an idea about how important it is when we get that conversion rate from 3% to 4% or just 1% increase. Imagine, even if we have 3.5%, just 0.5% increase, right? We'll still have around $35,000 or $40,000 more sales in this case. So imagine that small difference in the conversion rate. Now, cookies. Why are we talking about cookies? They look nice, but they're not actually cookies that you can eat. Cookies are pieces of pretty much text files that are saved in the web service and transmitted and saved in your local hard drive as well to try and pick up on your history and then on your search online, right? On your activities that you do with your browser. Now, why this is important for a business? Well, that is really important because it allows businesses to pick up on things that you do and your activities that you do with your browser, on your shopping activities, on your search activities, and on your engagement activities on social media as well. Now, when you start to think about it, it sounds a bit dodgy, right? You know, there is something behind the scenes tracking everything that I'm doing. But most of these cookies are fine for us. In fact, what they do, they make a surfing experience online better for us. But of course, you always have those, people who want to do bad things to you, maybe create cookies that try to get information from your machine and then do bad things to you and harm your computer, something like that with viruses. So that's always the case. But most of the cookies now, by law, European Union law, they have to ask you to allow them to store cookies in your machine. which is, I think, it's quite important and quite an improvement in the last few years, simply because you're aware that you're allowing X or Y company to store cookies in your machine, right? Now, the other thing that you will notice with cookies is that if you take two different laptops, your laptop and your friend's laptop, and you start to search something in Google about exactly same inquiry, you and your friend will get totally different results. If you wonder why that's the case, because according to the activities that you've been doing in the web, that Google has collected for you, it works out on your interest. What is that interest you the most? And then it shows you those results based on the inquiry you're making, right? In a way, it's very similar to actually what happens in the shopping processes in Amazon as well. What I see in Amazon Pay is totally different from what you see. Why? If that's the case, because my shopping activities are totally different from yours. I'm buying different things that you're buying, and therefore Amazon is working out with the help of the cookies and also with the help of my shopping experience to tell us what I could be interested in. Which in a way, when it comes to advertising, I don't think is still there yet. Simply because it's not intelligent enough as a process to offer me things that are 100% relevant to me, right? Because if I buy a camera online on Amazon, they're going to keep offering me more cameras. Well, I know how many cameras I'm going to buy. If I bought a bicycle online, I'm not going to buy another one after a week. Okay? But if you come back to me, and then you offer me accessories with a discount because I purchased a bicycle earlier, and that makes sense, I'll probably do that. In fact, I had to go to Galleria to buy something. Right? I probably would have bought from the website alone. But you can see now the importance of having relevant types of offering and marketing put in place. Now, let's look at the search engine relationships with other services. Now remember, when you think of search engines, it's really important to think of these two things. First, there is organic search in search engines, the organic connection, the organic link between companies and between blogs and between websites and between sources. And there is the paid search, right? Of course, the paid search is the one that you organize through pay-per-click campaigns. And you set yourself up in your Google Analytics or Omniture, or whatever service you're using, and you are building campaigns to connect with different search engines. But when you start to get a quick idea about how these are connected with each other, I'm not going to go into details, but you start to understand that most of these companies have got two ways of connecting. One is organic search, which pretty much the content and the engagement you're doing online and relevance of your link building attracts other people to connect to you. On the other hand, you have companies and search engines that they have got another way of connecting with you and third-party services through the pay-per-click campaigns that you're offering to them. In other words, you start to see how they're connected to each other, and of course, they start to scan services and activities that you do from one search engine to another. And you can also start to see that these relationships are organized based on directories too. Now, directories are those hubs, digital hubs online, that allow you to submit your address or your website or your blog or your e-commerce website into that individual hub so that it can start to promote your activities and connect to the others. Let's start to think about some of the good free tools, right? When it comes to Google Analytics in general, it's really important to start to play around with them to actually get a good understanding how they work. In the past, analytics used to be quite hard, right? It wasn't very easy to use them. In fact, you had to be quite technical to get the best out of analytics. But now, with the new updates that is getting relaunched like every 6 months or so, it's becoming really, really easy to use them. In other words, it's becoming so easy that at this point now, you can just ask your analytic services to just inform you, send you reports about how well you're doing in different parts of your website. And that is really interesting. That is because it allows you to pick up on the metrics that you're most interested in. But normally when you start with analytics, the first thing you do, you want to track all sorts of things in your website, just to see what clicks the most, what works the best. Okay? And that is an important element to think about. Now, of course, the most popular one, without a doubt, are Google Analytics. It's like a default used by small SMEs, but also by commercial and corporates as well. They go for premium services where they actually pay Google Analytics to use their services. But small SMEs, they kind of go and use their basic service that is free of charge from Google Analytics. Now, you might wonder why Google is offering this for free. Why do you think they're offering this for free?
I'm assuming you have to sign up to some of their other products or services.
What is the other product that helps Google
Google Plus.
to gain more profits and revenues because of Google Analytics?
Advertising.
Sorry?
Advertising.
Absolutely right. So, what Google says to you says, okay, if you advertise with us, we will give you the best analytics you can think of. So then, you try to build up a presence online that is the most efficient that you can think of. In return, what you will do, go back and advertise some more. So in other words, is all this circle of connection of services that Google offers to you. From Google Plus, Google Hangouts, to Google Scholar, books, Insight, everything else, right? To the point where if you're not going to use one service, you're going to use the other one. If you're not going to use the other one, you're going to use this one. But Google Analytics are at the heart of everything you're doing online, on your own activities online. Now I'm just showing you why they're offering this platform for free. You can see now why this makes sense. Because they say people won't be investing in our digital platform online unless they knew what worked and what didn't. But with Google Analytics, we're able to tell them exactly what are those activities that work best for the business. And in fact, you could argue that if Google Analytics is really good, super easy to use and fantastic, right? Probably Google will sell more ads. Okay, maybe they will probably get to the point where they will be a lot more popular as a pay-per-click service. Now, I'm not going to go into detail because it's something you need to look into, but this is just a normal dashboard you get from Google Analytics, and you start to build up an idea about, first and foremost, on your visitors, where people are coming from into your website. Okay? Now remember, we said that knowing where people are coming from is quite important, where those visitors are coming from is quite important. Why? Because you start to get an idea about if there are really huge number of visitors that are coming from a specific country, you might want to think how you can provide either content for those groups of customers or visitors, or actually provide products or services if you're selling something online. So it starts to help you to build that bigger picture for the future of your business. Then, of course, not just the first thing you get, then the other thing that is quite important, of course, are the keywords that are performing the best for you. Also, when you start to see live visits into your websites, right, you start to get an idea about how many people are visiting your website at that moment in time. Now you might say, why that is important? Well, if you know how many people are visiting your website, you be careful about the service and products you're offering, or if you're providing customer support. If you can have 10 people visiting your website, and there's no one to provide customer support, you might want to make sure that somebody is behind the scene, right, to be ready if a customer wanted to help. Now if you had a live chat support in your e-commerce website, 50 people visiting your website at that moment in time, nobody in a live customer chat, then you might want to make some phone calls and get someone to actually look behind this process. And also track these activities of the users. Then of course, an important element is the source of the traffic, where the traffic is coming from. Okay? What's happening with that traffic? Is that traffic coming from social media? Is that traffic coming from pay-per-click advertising campaigns? Or is it coming from StudyNet? Lots of my traffic comes from StudyNet. Because of you guys, most of my students that come to my website, they come via StudyNet, right? Or they come via iTunes U, our channel in iTunes U, right? And so, when I know that, I need to be really careful about what is my presence on StudyNet. Do people get a clear idea about my website on StudyNet before getting to my website? So on StudyNet, I need to make sure that I have a clear presentation about what they need to expect when they come into my website. You know, video lectures, maybe blog posts, or assignments or things like that. So in other words, I'm preparing these groups of visitors, these groups of students, before they come into my website, so when they come to my website, they know what to expect. And that's just an idea that you could do with other channels as well. Now, referral traffic, we talked about this, but an important element when it comes to the traffic is also, we talked about the bounce rate. And as I said, the bounce rate is pretty much the amount of irrelevant visits and traffic you are attracting to your website. Now, if the traffic that is getting to your website is not relevant, you start to see why that's the case. Because a huge amount of people spend very little time in your website. Right? So, sometimes they spend 15 seconds or 10 seconds. That just means you've attracted wrong people, or it might mean that what they got into your website is not providing any information, any solution, therefore they're leaving and trying to find something else. And so that piece of information on itself is really important, because you start to say, okay, well, if these people are coming from StudyNet, if these students are coming from StudyNet, but they're not spending 10 seconds in my website, maybe my website or that article wasn't good enough for the students to spend time enough to read or listen or view or something like that. So you start to build up an idea about what are those page views and how much time are visitors spending into the website. We talked about the source. It gives you a breakdown of the source from different channels that you're engaged online. It also gives you overall percentage. You can start to set up, which is quite interesting now, goals in using your Google Analytics. You can say, I want X goal 1 to sell this amount of products in this first week. Goal 2, I want to get this amount of subscribers for the week 2. And therefore Google will help you to track how well you're performing. So it's in Google's interest for you to do well, because you're going to go back to Google again. And you'll end up spending a lot more money with them. Of course, as I said, the breakdown of regions where people are coming from. And you can also say, I want to know people from social media, where these guys are coming from. And it gives you a breakdown of that too. And I talked about the goals. You can set up as many goals as you like. And that's a really good way. Why that is important is because when you start to set up goals, you know what you're working towards. So your activities and your improvement online that you're doing are all designed toward those goals. Now, there are lots of, as I said, lots of other free and paid services, very similar to Google Analytics out there, that offer you pretty much same that Google Analytics offer you as well. And different companies use different packages and different services. That's the Clicky, quite a popular one. Then we have Go Squared. That's another very popular platform used online to track traffic, to track social engagement, and in particular, really to look after the social networking activities, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. It gives you an overall picture about how well you're doing with those platforms. Woopra is another one, and it's quite a comprehensive one. It's got a really good dashboard that gives you an overall idea about the traffic, the source, the time spent to your website, where they're coming from. It's quite big, well visualized dashboard that gives you an overall idea about how well you're doing. And there are hundreds of others that you can use, free ones and paid services, but it's the best way to understand and learn analytics is for you, if you don't have a website, to set up your own blog or something like that, and to connect that blog to Google Analytics or any of those services, and start to understand, as you tweak things in your blog, you'll get more visitors. As you change things, you'll get more people coming from different parts of the world, right? So depending on your activities you have in your blog, you're going to attract different people to come to your website. So that's the best way to do that. Or if you know someone in your family or friend that is running an e-business or an e-commerce website online, then it's probably a good idea to help them, to offer your support for free. You just say, look, I'm going to offer you this for free. I understand Google Analytics. I've been studying it out, right? And I can help you implement Google Analytics. In return, you use their website, you track their services, and you'll learn as well. So there's a win-win for both people in there. So it's probably a good way. And this is what I say, that in today's world, you don't have to be working for someone to get experience. And that's what you have to keep in your mind all the time. There's no reason for you to say, I wish I could work for, I don't know, Google, Facebook, or Google has opened new offices in King's Cross. Really nice, beautiful place, beautiful offices. But you can't say, oh, I wish I could work for ASOS or like eBay or this company, but I don't have any experience. And I'm just finishing my master's now, but how can I do that? You can start to build experience from this day. By the time you're finished, you can actually have a good portfolio of activities and projects and things you've done with your computer and an internet connection. So you've got absolutely no reason to say that you just didn't have experience and that's why you can't apply or work for a specific company. And that's what I love about digital. It's limitless. Have you watched the movie Limitless? Good. Okay. Now, your social influence is an important element because what this does is that it's really helping you to get an understanding about how well you're performing with your engagement online. Ultimately, these visits that come from your website, they're actually people deciding to spend time and engage with you. So understanding how well they do with that engagement online is really important. That's why in our social networking module we have 400 students. So it's quite a big one. Now I just want to share with you some of these platforms that we use in social networking module as well, simply because they start to give us an idea about how well we're doing with content that we're publishing online, with updates, engagement, and the sharing that that content gets from the people that engage with us. And Social mentioned one of these tools. And the good thing about this tool that helps you to understand the sentiment, what is good and bad on the services that you provide or engagement that you provide online. Hootsuite is another one that is quite popular as well when it wants to manage social networking presence and all these different channels. And you start to add those in the columns, your LinkedIn profiles, your Facebook fan page and things like that. So one place for you to manage all those social networking activities. It gives you a very quick idea to help you to do just that. Bless you. Sprout Social, I think in the university we use this as well to manage our social networking activities. It's quite a popular tool. It's a paid one, but I don't think it's very expensive. I think it's around 20 or something pounds or something like that. But it's actually quite a good one because it offers you an opportunity to link all sorts of different accounts, get an idea about what is the content that is getting the most popularity online. Remember, popularity is the case. Now I want to leave you with this one. I mentioned this already, but if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So think about analytics this way. If you can't measure it, or if you're not willing to measure it, you don't have any information to help you to improve your presence online.